Sunday Politics with Matt.
Conservatives need to stop taking every little mishap done by the Democrats and turning it into a viral event because it's making them look stupid. If you don't know what I'm talking about, last Thursday or Friday, a few days ago, Kamala Harris led the Senate chamber in the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, I can't post the clip on here because of copyright reasons, but she messed up the third or fourth verse in the Pledge of Allegiance. Not that big of a deal. She fumbled one of the lines. Conservative talking heads ran with this and said, wow, we dodged a bullet. This woman can't even recite the Pledge of Allegiance properly. Do you know how stupid you look? And how dumb you sound? There are a billion issues. A billion. Probably 999, 90, whatever million plus one issues to slam Kamala Harris over. And this is what you're going to get her on? She fumbled the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. Look at the bullet we dodged. Now, Kamala Harris is not the smartest or the brightest or the sharpest knife in the drawer. We all know that, which is exactly why making this a talking point for your party looks really bad. How many times have we done things in our own lives that we do almost mundanely, day in and day out? But when you're put in front of an audience, when you're put on the spot, when your mind is maybe somewhere else, you fumble it. Happens to everybody. So, I'm not defending Kamala Harris. I'm not. She is a terrible person. She is an evil person. And she is absolutely unqualified to be president of the United States. But if the conservatives want to continue the momentum they've built with MAGA and J.D. Vance and beyond, they've got to stop these petty little things. Oh, look, Kamala Harris can't recite the Pledge of Allegiance because it's making you lose intelligent voters. There are a million things to critique her on, and I was one of them. And if you want to point out the mishap in her speech, go ahead. But to turn this into an issue like a lot of conservatives are trying to do right now is going to be a losing tactic, and it needs to stop. And I say that because Kamala Harris is such a weak candidate, and they are propping her, as I talked about last week, to be the nominee in 2028. You're going to have, you already do have plenty of material to go on to absolutely squash, demolish, and make her campaign look like the softball league campaign that it is. You don't need to prove to us that she can't say the Pledge of Allegiance, because she can. Of course she can. Now, if that was Joe Biden, maybe different story. His brains have turned into pudding. But if the Republicans want to continue winning over demographics that they pulled over this past election, then they need to stop being so petty over all of these little things that typically you brush off. Now, again, do I think Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee of 2028? No. But again, if we're going to critique her, there's plenty to critique her on. And the Republicans need to take a message of what they offer the American people forward. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of political analysts have said that is why Kamala Harris's campaign lost. Well, one of them is that she spent her entire time telling you why Donald Trump and the Republicans were bad for America instead of making a case for herself, which was difficult to do given she was with Biden the last 3.5, 4 years. But if you're going to run a good, strong campaign, which I'm sure Vance and a lot of other MAGA-ish Republicans will, then you've got to stick to the actual issues. You've got to hit them on the points that are actually intellectual, that are actually political, philosophical, what have you. And stop making these small, petty little things that Biden or Pelosi or Kamala Harris do main headlines and topics of your campaign. They're fun. I'm not going to lie, they're fun. And that wanted me to kind of take this into the way social media has shaped our past few elections. Now, Donald Trump had several strategies going into the last few weeks of the election. And one of them was that some polls, some interior polls, from what I hear or heard, said that his numbers among men weren't quite where they needed to be. They were there, and I think he won the white male vote 60 to 39%. So he got the white male vote. But he saved this interview with Joe Rogan, which I think was a pivotal moment in his campaign, and brilliant to do, by the way. He saved it towards the end, which Joe Rogan's audience has millions of people, millions of men, who probably tuned into that show and liked a lot of what he had to say and ended up voting for him. And it made me think, a lot of Trump's children, his grandchildren, are on TikTok. And you think of how there are so many people who shy away from those social media platforms, right? Don't go on TikTok; it's childish. Don't go, don't be posting these reels on Instagram. It's where we're headed, and I think the belief that we need to act and behave and live in 2025 like it's 1960 is wrong. God didn't make us for 1960. He didn't make us for 1930. He didn't make us for 1500. We're alive in 2025. And I think we should use and take advantage of the tools that are made available to us. Now, I know there's talk of the TikTok ban, and I know there's all of these rumors circulating that for security reasons with China, I don't believe it, TikTok might be banned from American hands. I don't know. But these are the platforms that young Americans are using, and you'd be turning a blind eye to it if you don't acknowledge it and use it. That is why, if you remember, in 2008, when Barack Obama had this massive electoral win over John McCain, it's that because Barack Obama used social media to his advantage about 50 times more than John McCain did. Barack Obama was releasing these remarkable ads, streaming them in ways that were quite new to the American political realm. Of course, you had your television ads and your radio ads, but people now have smartphones in their pockets. This was new to the Obama era, because when Bush ran in 2004, they weren't really so much a thing. And Barack Obama took full advantage of that. John McCain did not, and it showed. In a lot of ways. That wasn't the only reason. I'm not saying that is why Barack Obama won, because of Twitter, but or Twitter didn't even exist yet, but Facebook. But that is something that the Democrats did well with. And that is where I think Donald Trump in the last few years did well with. So I think the point that I have today is twofold. Don't be petty in your attacks on the opposing party, because people do not care about little things like you're not going to win you're not going to switch anybody's vote because Kamala Harris fumbled the Pledge of Allegiance before a chamber of Congress. But you will win votes for your party, for your candidate, if you insert yourself into the social media platforms that the young people are using, because Generation Z is starting to make up quite a large percentage of the electorate. Reach them. Go into their hands. Insert yourself into the world that they operate in, and don't try to hide from it. And I think that'll be a winning political strategy in 2028 for J.D. Vance or whoever Republican is taking the helm here. We've got the swearing in, the inaugural ceremony of Donald Trump on Martin Luther King Day. So what, 2 weeks and a day from today, so January 20th. And then it is time to get the ball moving. And I've heard from various sources that Donald Trump has a whole slew of executive orders and bills that he plans to sign and take on day one, which should make for a very wild early Trump administration part 2. And we will keep up on that. So make sure to like, what's the catchphrase here? Like, share, subscribe. please click that subscribe button, because you're not going to want to miss all of the news and all of the headlines we have coming your way from both MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, the Joe Rogan Show, wherever. We're going to try to pool it all together here on Sunday Politics with Matt on the Traditionalist channel and keep you up to speed with what is going on. Because again, we live in a digital age. We live in a new social media type era where even the adults are now have their hands on these social media platforms. So get involved, stay involved. It's not a bad thing, by the way. I don't think that we should tune out what's going on in the world. I don't believe that we should just put our hands over our ears and pretend none of it's happening, because it is. And it affects me, it affects you, it affects your families, and it affects your children. And we should be involved. And I don't think that any good Catholic or anyone of goodwill would turn a blind eye to it. Because in a way, those who speak up most get to shape the culture, right? So stay up with things as best you can. Don't go crazy. Don't let it consume you. There's going to be a lot of good and a lot of bad, and conservatives tend to overreact, in my opinion, a lot quicker than the Democrats. Excuse me, a lot quicker than the Democrats do. They love Trump one day and how could he the next. So take a step back, whatever side you voted for, which I'm sure most of the members of this channel, this audience, either voted for Trump or abstained from voting, which I understand both sides. But like, share, subscribe, and once the inaugural ceremonies for Trump takes place on the 20th, we will cover all of that for you, and make sure to stay tuned to us, where you'll get all your news, hopefully most of your news anyway, because polls and information put out there lately show that more and more people are getting their news and their information from Twitter, from X. I hate calling it that. From X, from Twitter, Instagram, than they are watching the news on a television in their home. So have a good week, everybody, and we'll see you next week, Sunday Politics with Matt.